The fog between us knew better. My name is Myra. I am 30 years old, though time has been strangely indulgent toward my face. Strangers often mistake me for someone much younger, their expressions hovering between disbelief and amusement when I correct them. I have stopped explaining. Age, I have learned, is not something the world reads accurately. It is something you carry, quietly, in the chambers of your thoughts, in the weight of your memories, in the pauses between breaths. I have always looked younger than I am, but I have never felt young in the careless way people imagine. There is a difference between appearing youthful and being untouched by life. My face remained soft, but my inner world grew layered, complicated, and heavy with unspoken reflections. Perhaps that is why I travel, to redistribute the weight, to let unfamiliar landscapes absorb some of what I carry. That journey, the one that altered something unnamed inside me, began without intention. I chose the hill town not because it was famous, but because it was quiet. The guidebook described it with a single line, often hidden in fog. That sentence alone was enough. Fog has always felt like a language I understood instinctively. Fog is not absence, it is concealment. It does not erase reality, it delays it. In fog, clarity is suspended, certainty postponed, and judgment softened. I loved that about it. When fog descended, the world felt less demanding, less sharp. It allowed me to exist without definition. On my first morning there, the fog arrived before dawn, dense and silver, coiling through the streets as if the town itself were exhaling. I stood near a quiet overlook, wrapped in my coat, breathing in air that tasted of damp earth and pine. That was when I noticed him. He stood a short distance away, motionless, as if carved from the silence itself. He was young, undeniably so, but there was a stillness about him that felt unpracticed, almost reverent. His gaze was lifted toward the fog, not searching, not curious, but listening, as though the mist were telling him something only he could hear. Without thinking, I spoke. "You like fog." My voice sounded foreign in the hushed atmosphere. He turned, momentarily startled, then smiled a slow, unguarded smile that carried no agenda. "I love it," he said. "It feels like the world is unfinished." I felt an unexpected warmth spread through me. That's a beautiful way to say it. He shrugged lightly. "I don't like things that are too clear." "Neither do I replied. His name was Mikkel. He was 19 years old, traveling alone for the first time, untethered from the familiar gravity of home. He spoke sparingly, but when he did, his words felt considered, chosen with care rather than urgency. He told me he loved fog because it reminded him that not everything needed to be understood immediately. I didn't tell him my age that day. Not because I was hiding it, but because it felt irrelevant. In that moment, age seemed like a technicality, a statistic unworthy of the atmosphere we shared. Over the following days, our encounters became frequent, almost ritualistic. Morning walks through mist-laden paths. Quiet cups of tea in cafes where condensation blurred the windows. Long silences that felt complete rather than awkward. I found myself laughing with an ease I hadn't experienced in years, laughing not out of politeness, but from something unburdened. I behaved like a child sometimes, chasing fog as it rolled downhill, stretching my arms wide as if I could embrace it. Mikkel never mocked me. He watched with gentle amusement, sometimes following, sometimes simply observing, as if my joy were something sacred, not to be interrupted. I did not notice when companionship transformed into constancy. It happened imperceptibly, the way fog thickens without announcing itself. He began walking a step behind me, always there but never intrusive. When I paused, he paused. When I turned, he was already watching. At first, I attributed it to coincidence, then to convenience, and finally to something I wasn't ready to name. One afternoon, as the fog draped the town in near opacity, I stopped abruptly and turned toward him. "Why do you keep appearing wherever I go?" I asked, half smiling, half searching. He hesitated just long enough for truth to rearrange itself in his mind. "Maybe," he said slowly, "I'm not appearing. Maybe I'm following." The honesty of his answer unsettled me more than any denial could have. That night, awareness settled in my chest like a weight. I replayed conversations, gestures, silences. I noticed the way his eyes lingered, the way his attention remained fixed even when words were absent. It was not obsession, not possession, but it was intention. The next morning, I confronted what I could no longer ignore. "How old are you, Mikkel?" I asked, though I already knew. 19, he answered without hesitation. I nodded, inhaled deeply, and said the words I believed would restore balance. "I'm 30. I'm like your biggest sister." The phrase felt protective, definitive, a boundary shaped by reason. He didn't flinch. "I know," he said. "You know?" I repeated, surprised. "I guessed," he replied calmly. "You carry yourself like someone who has lived longer than she looks." Relief washed over me. "Then you understand." "Yes," he said softly. But understanding doesn't always erase feeling. There it was, spoken without desperation, without expectation. Just truth. "Mikkel," I said carefully, "some feelings are meant to be acknowledged, not pursued." He nodded. "I'm not asking you to pursue anything. I just don't want to lie to myself." His emotional maturity startled me. He did not plead. He did not romanticize. He simply existed within his truth, unembellished. From that moment on, an invisible line emerged between us, thin, fragile, but firm. We remained companions, but with a deliberate restraint. I weighed my words, softened my laughter, contained my joy in ways that felt unfamiliar and exhausting. Yet, I could not bring myself to sever the connection completely. There was something profoundly innocent about him, not naive, but uncorrupted by expectation. He did not attempt to possess me or define me. He saw me as I was in that space, a woman suspended between age and emotion, clarity and concealment. As my final days in the town approached, a subtle melancholy settled in. The fog seemed heavier, more persistent, as if reluctant to release us. On the last evening, lanterns glowed dimly through the mist as the town prepared for a local festival. Music drifted through the air, fragmented and distant. I stood alone near the overlook where we had first spoken. He found me, as he always did. "You're leaving," he said, not asking. "Yes. Tomorrow." He accepted it with quiet composure. "Will you remember me?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "I remember every soul that walks beside me in fog." "Then," he said, "I'll stay there." We stood together in silence, no touch, no promises, no regret. Just presence. "I never wanted to trouble you," he said eventually. "You didn't," I replied. "You reminded me of something precious." What? That joy doesn't belong to age. He smiled. And you reminded me that not everything meaningful needs a future. The next morning, the fog thinned, reluctantly revealing the town. I boarded my bus without looking back, not because I didn't care, but because some moments survive only when left untouched. Now, whenever fog returns unexpected, uninvited, I think of him. Of quiet companionship. Of boundaries honored. Of feelings acknowledged but not consumed. My name is Myra. I am 30 years old. I look younger than my years, but I have learned that youth is not a matter of appearance, it is the courage to feel deeply without demanding permanence. And somewhere, in a place where fog still gathers, a boy named Mikkel listens to the world unfinished, and I remain grateful that, for a brief, fragile moment, our silences understood each other.